August 7, 1944. Dawn. The Normandy Bocage, France. Near the small, quiet and highly strategic town of Mortagne, the Allied invasion of Europe has finally broken out of the brutal, bloody hedgerow country. Operation Cobra has shattered the German defensive lines. General George S. Patton's Third Army is pouring south and west, threatening to completely encircle and annihilate the entire German Seventh Army in a massive pocket. Deep in an keen underground bunker in East Prussia, Adolf Hitler stares at a map. His top generals, men who have fought across the frozen steppes of Russia and the burning sands of Africa, advise an immediate tactical retreat to the Seine River to save the remaining troops. But the Führer refuses. He falls into a blinding, delusional rage and issues an order that defies all military logic and reason. Operation Lüttich, a massive, desperate, all-out, armored counter-offensive. Hitler orders the absolute elite of his remaining armored forces in the west, the 1st SS Panzer Division, Leibstandarte SS Adolf Hitler, the 2nd SS Panzer Division Das Reich, and the 17th SS Panzer Grenadier Division to smash through the American lines, sever the Allied supply routes, and push the Americans all the way back into the freezing waters of the English Channel. It is a suicidal gamble, a massive steel avalanche of over 300 medium Panzer IVs and the terrifying heavily armored Panther tanks rolling forward under the cover of a thick, impenetrable summer fog. Caught directly in the path of this unstoppable armored fist is the American 30th Infantry Division, known as the Old Hickory, and specifically the 2nd Battalion of the 120th Infantry Regiment, trapped on the high ground overlooking the town, a piece of terrain known on military maps simply as Hill 314. 700 American boys are completely surrounded. They are cut off from friendly lines. They are rapidly running out of food, water, medical supplies, and most importantly, anti-tank ammunition. The heavy, damp fog covering the French countryside is a blessing for the Germans and a death sentence for the Americans. It grounds the Allied air forces. The deadly British Hawker Typhoons and the American P-47 Thunderbolts are stuck on the runways in England, unable to fly in the zero-visibility soup. The American GIs grip their M1 Garand rifles in the wet, muddy dirt of their foxholes. They listen to the terrifying metallic squeal of tank tracks and the deep rumble of WWII 12 engines echoing through the fog at the base of the hill. They know that a 30 caliber rifle bullet cannot pierce 80 millimeters of sloped Krupp steel. They are staring down the barrel of their own slaughter. They are waiting to die, but history is about to be deafened by the sound of the future. September 12, 2025. Present day. The skies over the Nevada Test and Training Range. A massive red flag military exercise is underway, simulating a highly contested, near-peer combat environment. Flying at 5,000 feet above the scorching Mojave Desert are two of the most terrifying, purpose-built killing machines in the United States Air Force arsenal. The Fairchild Republic A-10C Thunderbolt the Seu, affectionately and universally known by the infantry troops it protects as the Warthog. Inside the lead aircraft, call sign Boar 1, Captain Ryan Reaper Evans checks his advanced weapon systems. The A-10 is not a sleek, supersonic, fragile fighter jet. It is a flying, titanium-armored tank. It was designed during the absolute peak of the Cold War with one singular, ruthless, and terrifying purpose: to fly low, take heavy anti-aircraft fire, and completely obliterate massive Soviet armored columns rolling across the Fulda Gap. Boar 2, form up on my right wing, Evans orders over the encrypted frequency-hopping radio network. Target area is 10 miles out. Simulate engagement on enemy armored battalion. Copy that one. Falling in, his wingman, Lieutenant Marcus Harris, replies, but they never reach the designated target area. Without warning, the clear, bright blue Nevada sky violently fractures. The air directly in the flight path of the two attack jets warps, shimmering like a mirage before erupting into a blinding, pulsating storm of violet and gold electromagnetic energy. It looks as though the fabric of reality itself has been torn open by a massive, invisible claw. Traveling at over 350 miles per hour, the two A-10 Warthogs have no time to evade. They fly directly into the center of the spatial tear. The heavy aircraft shake violently. Inside the cockpit, Captain Evans is thrown hard against his 5-point flight harness. The digital high-resolution glass displays flicker, go completely black, and die for a terrifying 3 seconds before the backup systems reboot them into safe mode. The GPS signal instantly drops to zero. Satellite communications dissolve into a wall of harsh, ear-piercing analog static, and then the violet light vanishes. The jets burst out of the turbulent anomaly, but they are no longer flying over the scorching, arid landscape of the Mojave Desert. The blinding sun is gone. They are flying through thick, damp, blindingly white European morning fog. Below them, as the fog occasionally breaks, they do not see desert scrub or mock training targets. They see rolling green hills, ancient stone farmhouses, dense, impenetrable hedgerows, and a small, burning French town. Boar 2, status, Evans yells, banking his jet hard to the left to avoid a low-hanging cloud bank. His heart pounds against his ribs. I'm with you, one. Engines are nominal. Flight controls are responding, but my navigation suite is completely fried. Inertial navigation is spinning in circles. I have absolutely no idea where we... Ah, sir, look at the ground. Captain Evans looks down through the reinforced acrylic canopy. The fog is beginning to lift slightly, burning off in the morning air. Below him, surrounding a large, prominent hill, he sees a massive, coordinated column of military vehicles. He activates his ANAQ-28V littening targeting pod. The high-definition, forward-looking infrared camera zooms in seamlessly from 3 miles away and 3,000 feet in the air. The monochrome screen in his cockpit displays incredibly crisp, terrifyingly clear images of the vehicles below. What the hell is this? Evans whispers to himself, his blood running cold. Those aren't modern OP-4 training targets. Harris, look at the chassis designs. Look at the turret profiles. Those are tanks with the Balkenkreuz, the German Iron Cross, painted on the sides. Those are World War II German Panzer IVs and Panther tanks, and they are firing live ammunition at troops trapped on that hill. Evans zooms the optical sensor onto the hill itself. He sees the thermal signatures of hundreds of men hiding in shallow holes in the dirt. He sees the distinct shape of M1 steel helmets. He sees the star of the U.S. Army painted on a destroyed Jeep. The 2 pilots, sitting in titanium bathtubs built in the late 20th century and upgraded with 21st century avionics, realize the impossible, horrifying truth. The spatial anomaly didn't just move them geographically, it threw them back 80 years in time, straight into the meat grinder of the Battle of Mortain. They are in 1944. They have no orders, no communication with the Pentagon, no joint terminal attack controller on the ground to guide them, but the instinct of an A-10 pilot is hardwired into their DNA. Their sole reason for existence is close air support, to protect American infantry on the ground at any cost. WWII, listen to me very carefully, Evans says, his voice turning to absolute ice over the short-range radio. We have American GIs pinned down by a hostile historical armored division. We are the only air support in the sky. Switch to Mavericks, weapons free. Let's send these Nazi bastards straight back to hell. Let's pause the timeline and look at the suicidal, almost comical technological gap between the two forces. The pride of the German counterattack in August 1944 is the Panzerkampfwagen 5 Panther. It is a masterpiece of German engineering for its time. It boasts 80 millimeters of sloped frontal armor, designed to perfectly deflect the kinetic energy of Allied anti-tank rounds. Its lethal 75mm gun can destroy an American Sherman tank long before the Sherman can even get into firing range. But its top armor, the roof of the turret and the engine deck, is extremely thin, barely 16mm of steel. It was designed to stop light artillery shrapnel, not dedicated, precision-guided anti-tank weapons raining from the sky. And its anti-aircraft defense consists of terrified soldiers firing standard machine guns into the air by hand, relying entirely on visual aiming. Now, let's look at the Fairchild, Republic A-10C Warthog of the year 2025. Under its massive straight wings, it carries the AGM-65 Maverick air-to-surface missiles. These are not unguided rockets like the ones used by the P-47s in World War II. These are electro-optical and infrared-guided smart weapons. They can lock onto a tank's heat signature from over 13 miles away. Once fired, they are fire and forget. The pilot can turn away, and the missile will track the moving tank and destroy it with absolute pinpoint accuracy. But the true horror of the A-10, the reason it strikes primal, paralyzing fear into the hearts of its enemies, the reason the entire aircraft was literally built around a single weapon, is the GAU-8A Avenger. It is a 30mm hydraulically driven 7-barrel Gatling-style autocannon mounted directly in the nose of the plane. The gun itself is 19 feet long and weighs over 4,000 pounds. It is the size of a Volkswagen Beetle. It fires the PGU-14B armor-piercing incendiary rounds. These are not normal bullets. These are darts made of depleted uranium, encased in an aluminum shell. Depleted uranium is incredibly dense, and it is pyrophoric, meaning that when it penetrates armor, the sheer friction and pressure cause the uranium to spontaneously ignite into a blinding, superheated fireball inside the tank. And the GAU-8 fires these depleted uranium rounds at a staggering, mind-numbing rate of 3,900 rounds per minute. That is 65 armor-piercing shells per second. Target locked. Lead Panther command tank. TADS is tracking, Harris calls out from WWII. Rifle, Evans replies, confirming the missile launch. 2 AGM-65 Maverick missiles drop from the underwing pylons of the Warthogs, their solid propellant rocket. Motors ignite with a brilliant flash, leaving thick, white contrails of smoke through the damp 1940s fog. They accelerate to over 600 miles per hour. Down on the ground, an SS Panzer commander stands in the cupola of his Panther tank, looking through his Zeiss binoculars at the American positions on Hill 314. He is smiling. The Americans have stopped firing their bazookas. They are out of ammo. ammo. The hill is about to be overrun. He never hears the jets. He never sees the missiles. The two Mavericks strike the lead Panther and the heavy communication half-track simultaneously. The explosions are catastrophic, earth-shattering events. The 126-pound shaped charge warheads instantly vaporize the 1940s Krupp steel. The kinetic energy and superheated copper plasma punch through the fighting compartments, instantly detonating the high-explosive ammunition stored inside the tanks. The heavy 45-ton Panther turret is blown completely off the chassis in a massive geyser of blinding yellow fire and boiling engine oil, flipping end over end through the air before crashing into the mud. The German armored column halts in absolute paralyzed panic. "Air attack! Jabos! Thunderbolts!" a German soldier screams, pointing at the white smoke trails in the sky. But he is wrong. These are not 1940s P-47 Thunderbolts. These are not planes that drop unguided bombs and hope for a lucky hit. These are apex predators. "Missiles expended," Captain Evans says, his voice devoid of emotion as he looks at the burning wrecks on his targeting pod. "Bore 2. Line them up on the main road. Guns, guns, guns." The two A-10 Warthogs drop out of the low cloud ceiling, diving at a steep, aggressive 30-degree angle toward the congested, panicked German armored column, the pilot's line. Up the pippers on their heads-up displays with the long line of grey tanks. They squeeze the heavy triggers on their control sticks. The sky itself seems to tear wide open. Brrrrt. The sound is legendary. It is not the rapid popping of a normal machine gun. It is a deep, mechanical, demonic roar, a guttural, vibrating groan that echoes across the French countryside like the voice of an angry, vengeful god clearing its throat. It is a sound that no human being in 1944 has ever heard. And here is the most terrifying law of physics regarding the A-10 Warthog. The muzzle velocity of the 30mm rounds is faster than the speed of sound. This means that if you are the target, you are already dead before you hear the gunfire. Before the demonic roar even reaches the ears of the German soldiers on the ground, the depleted uranium shells impact the column. It is absolute, unapologetic, systematic carnage. The heavy armor-piercing rounds strike the thin top armor of the Panzer IV and Panthers at over 3,300 feet per second. The depleted uranium darts punch through the steel as if it were wet cardboard. Upon entering the crew compartments, the uranium ignites, turning the insides of the Nazi tanks into supersonic storms of molten metal, fire, and overpressure. Sparks, roaring, flames, and chunks of shattered armor erupt along a 200-yard line of total destruction. In a single 2-second burst from the Avenger cannon, Captain Evans completely shreds 6 German tanks, 4 half-tracks, and 2 fuel trucks into burning, unrecognizable, smoking scrap metal. Pretty! Lieutenant Harris follows right behind him, 50 feet lower, his cannon vomiting a solid beam of fire. Another line of German armor simply ceases to exist. The heavy tanks are ripped open, their ammunition carousels cooking off in spectacular secondary explosions that light up the foggy morning. The German anti-aircraft gunners, veterans of the Eastern Front, are paralyzed with a terror they have never known. They desperately try to pivot their 20mm flak-Vierling guns at the strange, grey, cross-shaped planes that move with impossible agility. They manage to fire a few bursts. A dozen 20mm high-explosive rounds strike the underside of Captain Evans' jet. In 1944, those hits would shred the aluminum skin of a Mustang or a Spitfire, setting the fuel tanks on fire and bringing the plane down instantly. But the A-10 is built around a 1,200-pound titanium armor bathtub that encases the pilot and the flight control systems. The jet engines are mounted high on the fuselage, designed to keep running even if heavily damaged or completely shot through. The wings are built with redundant spars. The Warthog literally absorbs the 1940s anti-aircraft fire. The shells spark and bounce off the titanium armor. The jet barely shakes. Evans pulls back on the stick, banking the massive aircraft around gracefully for another pass. "They're not going down. The shells are doing nothing. What are these monsters?" a German SS officer screams, his mind breaking as he watches the planes turn around completely unharmed. He throws down his weapon and retreats blindly into the forest. The SS Panzer divisions, known worldwide for their fanatical, unbroken bravery and ruthless discipline, completely and utterly break. The psychological shock of facing indestructible, roaring machines that vomit rivers of fire from the sky, destroying their heaviest tanks in milliseconds, is too much for the human mind to process. The German soldiers abandon their perfectly functional tanks, leaving the engines running. They throw down their Mauser rifles, abandon their wounded, and flee into the dense woods of the bocage in absolute primal terror. On the summit of Hill 314, the exhausted, starving and desperate American GIs of the 30th Infantry Division stand up slowly in their muddy foxholes. They look down at the valley below. They see a mile-long graveyard of burning, destroyed German armor. The impenetrable Panzer Division has been turned into a junkyard of smoking steel. And then they look up at the sky. They watch in pure religious awe as the two grey, strangely shaped jets tip their wings in a military salute. They fly low over the hill, the roar of their turbofan engines shaking the dirt, before climbing steeply and disappearing back into the low clouds. Operation Lüttich. Adolf Hitler's desperate, massive gamble to win the Battle of Normandy and turn the tide of the war in the West is crushed in less than 12 minutes by 2 airplanes. The American 30th Infantry Division is saved from total annihilation. The German 7th Army's counterattack is halted permanently. Thousands of American lives are spared from the meat grinder. As the A-10s climb back to an altitude of 10,000 feet, the atmospheric pressure shifts again. The violent, pulsating violet storm reappears directly in their flight path, violently pulling the two modern warbirds back through the rift, returning them to the 21st century. But they leave behind a world forever altered. History is radically rewritten on the blood-soaked hills of France. Without the delay and the heavy casualties of the Mortain counter-offensive, General Patton's Third Army races across, France unhindered. The Falaise pocket is closed weeks earlier, trapping and destroying the entirety of the German forces in the west. The Allied forces cross the Rhine River and advance into the heart of Germany months ahead of schedule, breaking the Nazi war machine completely before the bitter, freezing winter of 1944 can even begin. The Battle of the Bulge never happens, and in the highly classified, locked archives of the United States Army. In Washington, D.C., combat reports from the surviving officers of Hill 314 speak of a miracle. They do not write about tactical air support. They speak of 2 grey, wingless angels of death that descended from the fog. They speak of a weapon that fired with the wrath of God. And they speak of the terrifying, demonic roaring sound of a machine gun that ripped the very sky apart, shattered the Nazi armor, and saved their lives. The sound of the Warthog. Welcome to the tactical time rift. What modern machine of war, what pinnacle of human engineering would you drop into the darkest battles of the past? Let your tactical imagination run wild in the comments below. Subscribe now and prepare your weapons for the next rift to open.